Greetings and welcome to the first episode of Association Matters, the official PCAAE podcast for conversations on governance, leadership, and impact in the association sector. So, we're your host. I'm Bobby.
And I'm Emily. And today we're going to explore a foundational question. Why do associations matter today? From shaping industry and professional standards to influencing public policy and driving collaborative action, associations play a unique role in a world that's never standing still.
So, for part one of this podcast, we will feature a trade association whose members are business organizations. And to help us unpack this, we are joined by Mr. Ruben J. Pascual, Secretary General of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI for short, the largest and most influential business organization in the Philippines, presiding over 3,000 direct members, 130 local chapters nationwide, 60 international bilateral business councils, and 40 industry associations.
Mr. Pascual has an illustrious career and extensive professional experience, refined by more than 3 decades as a journalist, diplomat, legislative chief of staff, business executive, and consultant to international development agencies, government departments, politicians and legislators, local and foreign, corporations, and community organizations. Wow.
So Ruben, thank you for being here. So to start us off, my first question is, how would you describe the role of chambers of commerce and industry, and in particular PCCI, in the Philippine context today?
First of all, good afternoon, Bobby, and good afternoon in Australia, Emily. It is such a privilege for PCCI, through me, my guesting, to be part of your conversation this afternoon. As you correctly mentioned, PCCI is the largest business organization in the country. There's some inconsistency on the numbers that you have cited, the number of chapters. It's actually 1,130. Direct members is less than 2,000. But the members of our 130 chapters, we account for about 30,000 small and medium, micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Wow.
So why is a Chamber of Commerce very special? The reason we have broad membership is that many, especially the small businessmen, are often at a loss on following or complying with business regulations. They also are at a loss if they work singly through their own representation, especially the small ones. They won't be listened to. That's why they join chambers who speak on their behalf. A very good example of that, Bobby and Emily, is when the pandemic hit in 2020. You see, everybody did not know where to get money, what regulations to follow, etc.
Right.
It is the Chamber of Commerce, and especially in the Philippine setting, the national government depended on PCCI for consulting and reaching out to the private sector, simply because of the vast network that we have. We are the only organization with such a national network. That's why whether you're an international development agency, you are a senator, you are a national agency, you want to rely to PCCI to get and mobilize their members, their information that has to go to the businesses. That is, I think, the number one purpose of the chamber, is to speak on behalf of its members, especially the small companies.
That's some really valuable insight, and what a vast network you have. Could you share some specific case studies or stories? You did briefly touch on one, but how PCCI has made a significant impact in its sector?
I think maybe the latest for the Philippines is that we always, enterprises here, whether it's domestic or foreign investors, always face problems on doing business in the Philippines. A common problem is on internal revenue concerns, on the paying of taxes, whether complying with customs regulations, and so forth, so on. Very recently, we just met with the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Secretary of Finance, and they immediately worked on the reforms on the complaints of the business sector, especially on the issuance of local, of what we call letters of authority, or LOA, wherein companies, whether it's small or large, are issued sometimes multiple letters of authorities so that they will comply. They will. This is a pre-assessment announcement by the revenue collector that you have to pay this amount. And this happens every year. And you can receive as much as 9 letters of authority. What the government did alone upon the representations of PCCI and other organizations, they stopped this practice, and we need, as we enterprises, we will attend to only one. You cannot be harassed with so many of these things. No? So this is an example that was addressed immediately. Bobby, just to tell you and emphasize one of the big problems, especially with the foreign investors, that they are slapped with the first announcement that you have to pay, say, 10 million in taxes.
Wow.
Even if you're good compliance. But actually, this is way above what you're supposed to pay. But
Right.
the first announcement you get is that. So they put it very high and settle low. So even this practice, I think they are watching out the kind of assessments, pre-assessments that are given to companies. Because for us, most of the time, this is actually a harassment. So if you want to complain as a businessman, you cannot complain on your own because you are
Yes.
at the mercy of the revenue collecting officer. But if PCCI is the one talking on your behalf, they will be afraid to do so.
Right, right. So representation is very important, and I can relate to that, Ruben. For our last question, looking ahead, what do you see as key challenges and opportunities for chambers, specifically PCCI, in the next years or decade?
The most important challenge for every chamber, whether it is a national or a local business chamber, is to establish its credibility before it hosts governments or hosts local governments. Without this credibility, you will not be consultant and may be accused of being a harassing organization as at the same time. For instance, in PCCI, the reason we have survived, tracing the history of PCCI, it goes back 140 years ago with the Kamara de Comercio de Filipinas. And in 1978, or how many years? That's 48 years ago. 48 years ago, we were established and recognized by government officially as the voice of
Ah,
business.
right,
So our job, for instance, is to stay politically neutral regardless of who wins the national elections. Because whoever wins, we have to engage the
right,
government that is functioning. So
right.
that credibility, that independence is crucial for the survival of chambers. And this is very felt in local chambers when they side with a particular political group. When their candidate loses, nobody believes that another organization is created. So
Right.
I think we have been successful in being independent. We maintain that credibility. That's why regardless of what government is elected in the Philippines, they listen to PCCI.
So, any other parting words before we wrap this up, Ruben? And Emily will give the key takeaways. Any words
I,
of
I
wisdom?
I spoke mainly about how we function within the Philippine setting.
Right,
I think what is important for many associations is how you leverage your own international networks. That's why
mm,
being part of this podcast is very crucial. I know you represent Emily, many of the international business organizations. Our
right,
job now is to make sure that we are able to connect globally. This is the main challenge, and this is a very important job that we have. We are partners with about 100 foreign different chambers of commerce. Just the last 6 weeks, when we elected a new president, we are in conversations with about 40, at least one a day, with a
wow,
country, whether it's a foreign chamber, their embassy, or groups of businessmen. So this is how active it is. I think this is for expanding global trade. These
right,
kinds of associations will be very crucial.
right. So you're the local voice to the world, so to speak.
That's correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
so
Okay.
Emily.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Ruben. Those insights are really powerful, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy them as much as I have tonight. So to wrap up, a couple of takeaways from for our viewers, I think is number one, the collective voice. So at the core, chambers and associations matter because they give businesses a collective voice. In the Philippines, organizations like PCCI bridge the private sectors and governments, making sure business concerns, especially from smaller enterprises, are heard in national policy discussions. And that's so important. Alone, many businesses have limited influence, but together through an association like yours, they can help shape the economic environment they operate in. And takeaway number two that I got from that was impact through scale and connection. So the real impact of an association shows when advocacy, convening, and capacity building really all come together through initiatives like the Philippines Business Conference and Expo, I understand it, and Nationwide Chamber Network. The PCCI connects the sectors and strengthens those micro, small, and medium enterprises. And I think also that lends to the policy and the global aspects that you talk about, and connecting everyone globally is really important to remain relevant and as we progress through to the next decade.
Oh, thank you. That's a very great synthesis of our discussion today.
So again,
I'm
thank
glad.
you, Ruben, for joining us, for joining the Association Matters podcast, where governance, leadership, and impact come together. The podcast is brought to you by the Philippine Council of Associations and Association Executives, and by Membis through Emily for this podcast.
Please subscribe to our podcast and visit the PCAAE website at pcaae.org for updates and full episode notes. Until next time, thank you very much, Ruben.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Emily, and thank you for inviting us, Bobby.